Good morning. I didn't make it. I was still typing in the back end. I was close though. I hit some other little screen. Hey, how is everybody? Good morning. Dr. McAllister has returned. It is a beautiful spring day in South Georgia. Refreshed. I've been on vacation. Didn't really want to go back to work, but then again, I don't really work, so that's okay. I feel great. Good morning, Arthur. Good morning, Don. Thank you, Don. I'm doing something special just for you today, Don, per your request. If in your mic, what's that mean, Art? I don't know what that means, Art. Plug in your mic. So you're saying you can't hear me. Well, it is coming through, Don. Can you hear me? Mom, can you hear me? Wendy, can you hear me? Can anybody else hear me? Or is it just Arthur who can't hear me? Because I'm seeing sound go out. It could be a snafu because the sound is showing. Any sound? Mom says she can hear me. So, good morning, Facebook user. Your mic is choppy and static. How about if I do that? That might clean it up a little bit. It's on an older wire. So hopefully that's the issue. Okay. Well, because you never know with these electronic things. Your sound was crackly, but we can hear you. Some static. Yeah, it's probably this connection right here. Now, of course, there's also a 20-second delay between what I see and what you guys hear. It'll probably grind a little bit when I put this back in my pocket again. Let me make a change here and undo this button. Hey, I've been off for a couple of weeks. You know, I can't get it all perfect. Let me get that hooked. You're probably hearing some static right now, so don't shoot me for that. Get on there. I switched to shorts, and they have a different pocket and all that good stuff. So we'll try going this way. This is a wire, this headset wire has had a hard life. Yeah, okay, hopefully that's all better and good things. So I'm happy to be back. Super pleased, had a great time away. Couldn't ask for a better vacation time. Feels good to be back out here. Like I said, ready to go to work, excited. Today, we're going to do a little piece of sycamore. Imagine that. I am going to get done with this sycamore. And we're going to make a rolled rim flared vase. This is a perfect piece for this project. Thank you, Mark. It's good to be back. This is a perfect piece for this project because it has a big old split in it, right? Now, it's not that big a piece of sycamore. It's maybe, 6 inches long or something like that, and about 6 inches around. Well, it's got this big split right here, like a lot of it does. It's getting old. So this is a perfect piece to take the center out, dish it out, and make our flared vase. And it gives me a good thing to get rid of as well, a good way to get rid of it. Now, Don Faulkner, who is here, had asked just the last time I was on, I had done whatever it was I did. Honestly, I don't remember now. And I put it on a faceplate. And he said, well, why could you not use a worm screw, or why not? Well, and I said, you could. So Don, this one is for you. So I have set this up today with a worm screw in the Easy Wood chuck. And you'll see that when this was cut round on a bandsaw, this was done on the Carter circle jig on the bandsaw, so it's relatively perfectly round. It already has a hole right in the center. So that centers up our piece. Now here in the chuck, we'll go to the end shot. We've got our worm screw in here. And the worm screws, for those of you who are not familiar, they go right between the chuck jaws, right down inside the chuck jaws. Now the Easy Wood worm screw happens to be double-ended, okay? And in this case, I used the smaller end because I had probably a 1/4 inch hole in there. and it slides right in the jaws. Now, unless they have changed it at Easywood, one thing, for those of you who have an Easywood chuck, like I know Art does, it only works in the 2 3/8 inch jaws. It doesn't work in the smaller jaws, and it doesn't work in the bigger jaws. It doesn't grab correctly right here for whatever reason. So that's something to be aware of with your Easy Chuck. This is not a problem as long as you remember which jaws to use. Make that nice and snug. And I'm going to go to the overhead here. And all we're going to do is thread this, and I had wound it on there once. We just thread this on. Now I'm going to lock my spindle down. And this is what's critical about using a worm screw. This sycamore is a little soft. So I'm going to turn it to snug it up. Now, if you have a really strong wood that will hold the threads really well, you can crank on it really hard. And Don, this is why with the sycamore I haven't been using the worm screw. So if I keep turning on this, I will strip the threads right out of it. It won't hold the threads very well. But I wanted to show you that we can use it, and we'll use the tailstock to keep it safe. Get the tool rest up here. So that's the biggest issue. If I kept turning this, it would strip the threads right out of it. Okay? So I will have to keep an eye on it. And I'm going to bring my tailstock up. So we're essentially turning between centers now. Okay? So that makes it safe. And depending on how the project goes, I may, if it starts to spin, because the pressure of the tools can actually, if there's more resistance with the tool on the wood, force than what the screw can hold, it will start to strip. And if that happens, then we'll go ahead and put it on its tenon and turn it around sooner. Hopefully we won't have to put it on a faceplate to hold it in place, because we do need to do some work while this is still between centers to make our reverse curve flare that I want to make on this today. The next thing I have to do real quick is I have to change a cutter out here on an Easywood tool, and I'll be using the carbide tools, Easywood carbide tools, and the Carter & Son Toolworks high-speed steel tools. But I've got a negative rate cutter on here right now, so I want to take that off. I guess I must have been doing some resin last time I was out here. I hope the sound is good now, and there's no static and all that good stuff. And hopefully this will come loose. There we go. It's good to see everybody, have everybody back. Gang's all here, lots of fun. And one thing I do need to do is I need to go in and change over my monitor for Facebook so that I can see my Facebook feed, because I cannot see it right now because I ran out of time trying to get something else back up or get one of the computers hit. So let me take care of this real quick for myself. I'd like to see what's going on here. And that's way behind time. There we go. Now I'm up to speed. And if I expand this is just one of my monitors for me. Okay, now I can see that as well. All right, so I've got a Easywood cutter here that has been used before. It's been sharpened before. I'm not sure if it's super fresh or not, super sharp. So I'm going to go ahead and just give this a quick sharpening on the diamond card, just to make sure that it's ready to go. This is the 600 side. It was 600 1000. I normally use the 600 300. But I have to be honest, and I couldn't find the 600 300 this morning. Usually I'll cut them down with the 600 side, then come back and hit them with the 600 side. So since I can't find that one in this mess. Hey, Jeff Peters. So you're at home and you're supposed to be doing online work training. Well, you are. You're doing online work training for woodworking. And so you can see that little slurry that's coming up there. And I can actually feel a little burr on this. I don't know what I did to it. There's a little nick in it. which we're not going to zoom in to see. But you don't really have to, you only have to go around about 10 times. And you see that little gray slurry? And that tells me that this has been freshened up and is ready to go. We'll put that back off to the side. I'll leave that in the overhead, and I'll put the tool right up here on the piece of wood. To reinstall the cutter. There we go. Always make sure to sit sitting flat. Now, once you have, and also always use the short end to tighten these. Once you have put one of these cutters on a diamond card and resharpened it like that, all the engraving goes away, so you don't have a reference anymore for what was in the front and what wasn't before you turned it. You can try and put marks on the back side. They work sometimes and sometimes they don't. So anyway, now we've got a fresh cutter on here. We're ready to go with that. Get myself squared away. I also, because I've been gone, and I want to double check that this chuck is on here tight, because I haven't been out here in a while. Okay, let's see. Let's find a speed for this guy. It's set at 0 right now. It is wound on. It's going in forward, which is good. Sometimes I'd have been in reverse. So I tried to get these shots to where you'll be able to see the tools when they come right in here for the work we're going to do. Now, as usual, we want to turn this as fast as we can safely. And it looks like I was a little bit off center there with my tailstock right in here, because I was getting a little wobble. So what I'm going to do real quick before we get going any further is I'm going to cut a fresh center hole in this. Okay. And I'll just grab that little cutter that we just freshened up, because I was getting a little wobble there. When you have this lathe has a headstock that slides and rotates, and sometimes they don't line up super well. So if I just kind of clean that up like so, and bring my tailstock back up and let it find its center. Much better. Again, this wood is soft. All right, so we're looking for speed without vibration. Looks like that's not shaking the cameras either. Hey, Joe. Good to see you. And Dad's in here. Good morning, Dad and Mom. I saw my mom pop in earlier. Awesome. Awesome. I get it right one day. Good to see you. So we're turning 880 right now. It's not shaking anything per se. It looks pretty stable. That's a nice speed to start with this piece. That way we can buzz right along. All right. Another thing I'm going to do, because I haven't been in here in a while, just to make sure things are set, I'm going to clean up my tool rest. Just take a flat file and just run across it real quick. Get any nicks or burrs out of there. Now the picture, if you happen to see the banner post this morning, I just grabbed a image off of Google for a vase, but it's got the same shape that I want to make today. There we go. And one of the keys with this particular shape is that part of the turning, we have to make this recurve that we're going to make in the top up here before we ever turn it around. Hey, Glenn, good morning. But before I get crazy with that, let's just get this round and trued up. And I'm going to go ahead, I think, because I have some reservations with the worm screw in this soft wood. I want to go ahead and make my tenon down here first, or very soon. Then we'll work on the top and make the recurve. Once the recurve is cut, with the curve tools, we'll be using the EasyWood hollowing tools. Once that's cut, we can then turn it around, but that's the first thing we got to get. But if I strip it out, I'm going to have to go to a different route. So I want to go ahead and get this trued up and put my tenon on the end, and we'll go from there. Okay, so all that being said, we can rough this to round with any of the tools. The Easy Wood carbide tools, the bowl gouge. I think I'll just use the bowl gouge this morning. I didn't sharpen it, but I gave it the finger test. Carter & Son 5/8 bowl gouge. Feels sharp. I'm going to go with it. We're just doing some rough work here right now. Let's make some chips before somebody says that I talk too much. And drop that all the way down. And I'm just going to come across this guy. And this wood is really soft. And just get it round just like that. It's also spalted and got a little ambrosia in it as well. Now that's really just for balance, because we're going to turn all that away. Let's come in here and clean up this bottom. Bring my tool rest around, give you an end view. And I'll just draw across here. Just to get that flap. Let's see what we got going on down in here. Just about there. Got that little flat spot in it. You can push cut too if you want to. Don't stick your tool into the live center. Okay, it's a pretty piece of wood. The sycamore has been pretty right along. I need to find my calipers real quick. Like I say, I've been out of here, so hopefully I can find things without having to spend too long, because it has not been cleaned up in a long time. We'll go to the overhead while I look for my other calipers. I knew I'd get myself in trouble with not being able to find everything that I needed right away. But I figure you guys know how I roll, and it would probably be okay. Nobody would really condemn me for that. Although I would like to find them here one of these days. Because they're pretty handy, to put it mildly. And knowing me, there's no telling where I left them the last time I was running out here. So, what I think I'll do, I'll just go about it a little bit different. I'm going to use the same 2 3/8 jaws. So I'm just going to I'm going to do this in reverse. I'm actually use a set of inside calipers. And set, look at that. I was going to set them to 2.5, and that's where they landed. So that's what I'm just going to use for my reference. I'll make them a little oversized. I'll make my tenon just slightly oversized. I just need a ballpark, something to figure with. Okay. Now what I'll do here is I'll take the tailstock away for a minute and come in and make the tenon, and then we'll put it back in place. Art says, look in the drawer. I looked in 3 drawers, Art, and I didn't find them. Okay, I do like to use the Easy Wood tools, square style tool for making my tenons, and luckily I found one that has the rougher, square rougher on it. So let's go to the end camera. Raise that up just a fuzz. Okay, clean that up. And I'll just make my first cut as an estimate. Just make a nice light cut. And that's just about right on the money. So it's a little teeny bit bigger than my cut. So I know I'm safe. Okay. You see here I'm getting some vibration there, so I'm going to come sideways. See if that works any better. Right up to my point. And I'm just using about half the cutter, and even that, because I'm on that worm screw, I get the vibration. Now I could put the tailstock back in place, but it's much easier with it gone. And I'm also going to make sure that this is slightly concave, as we always do. As I always do, I'm going to use the length of this cutter for the length of my tenon, because that will match the depth of my jaws. So I just use the length of the cutter for the length of the tenon. Pretty standard stuff. George says, what kind of wood and what about that crack? The wood is sycamore, George, and the crack is going to get turned away because this is going to be a vase with a thin stem coming down, so that crack is going to get completely turned away, which is why we chose this project for this piece of wood. Hopefully that makes sense. Now there's a lot of ways you could go about this. This just is one way. I could have carved a bunch of this away to start with, but I don't really have the design finished in my head yet. Okay, so in the overhead camera you won't be able to see, but that tenon length is just about perfectly matches my cutter, so I'm good there. Again, I'm going to double check, make sure that is recessed. I'm going to take a detail tool and I'm going to mark the center, make sure I've marked the center, even though we're going to put the tailstock back in, which will do that. And we're going to make our 10-degree dovetail with the EasyWood diamond shaped detailer. That gives us our hold. Alright, so now we have our tenon, and that looks pretty good right there. So, for safety, tailstock back up, plus it'll help take away some of that vibration. So now if we have to turn around, we have our tailstock in place. Or I mean, we have our tenon made. Okay? But let's go to work here. Let's clean up the top. So the next thing I want to do is I want to clean up this top face, because I want to know where my true top is. Right now, it's out of round. It's not completely true. So I think I'll just grab that square cutter again, wherever I just may have put it. And all I want to do here is just clean up this top. Okay, now I know where my top is, I know where my bottom is down here, okay? And I'm going to go ahead and start to take some of the center out. That will give me the room to make my recurve. So let's get some of this mass, which will take away the crack as well. So I'm going to switch over to back to my bowl gouge to move some material quickly. Okay. This is the tall tool rest. We're still turning about 900. We're going to take it up to an even 1,000. All right. Now let's just take away some of this wood. This will also get some of the mass out of it, plus get rid of the crack. can go ahead and take some of this bottom away if we want to as well, because we know we're going to get rid of a bunch of that. Now this is a place, at this stage, if you're new to turning, now I'm just throwing this wood away right now, right? I'm just making, I'm making really fast cuts, just throwing away the waste wood. But if you are new to turning and you're looking for a practice area for your finish cuts, this is a great time to practice your finish cuts. Because this is, it doesn't matter if you get it right or wrong here. So if you want to take at this stage while you're getting rid of waste wood and practice making your finish cuts, the real fine, clean cuts, this is the place to do it. This is free practice wood. You don't get to practice when you get to the final spot. When it's time to make that finish cut, it's got to be right. So if it's something new to you and you're working on those finish cuts, this is a great place. Slow way down, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. Make them nice and smooth and clean and light. Okay, great way to practice on the free wood, because you're throwing this away. So if I said, okay, I want to make this nice, I'm going to slow that cut way down and make a nice light cut. Okay, and you can see I got a little bevel rub there, it looks like. So maybe we try again. Kind of float that bevel a little bit more. This wood again is really soft, so you can see the difference between when I was going fast and when I slowed down here and made my finish cuts. Okay, so this is a great time to practice that. Now this crack, we don't know how far in here this thing goes, but we know we're going to get rid of it. I'll raise that up just a fuzz. Do, 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 do. And you can hear it cutting through that split. Now, because I like to show both styles of tools, bowl gouges and carbide tools, let's switch over, because we can do the same thing with carbide. Change my tool rest. I do have to stop and change my tool rest. Raise that up. Get that centered. And we can do the same kind of thing. And the beauty of using a round cutter for this is that we can go back and forth without ever having to pick up the tool. I like to think of these as sculpting tools. So I started on the left hand side of this cutter here, so I'm on the left hand side. So I come down, I'm in the center, then I'm on the right hand side, and if I want to go around this corner, other than jumping off of there, I can go right up to there, come right back. That's the beauty of these tools. Now, I do know that I want to roll this top over, so now that I have this in my hand already, my sculpting tool, let's start to work on this top shape, this lip that we're going to make. And these are the easiest way to do this. We just start to round this guy over. So one thing we need to keep in mind, I think I'll get a little fresh air in my mask here. One thing we need to keep in mind when we're working on the piece, is the proportion. So this piece is kind of squatty, right? So we don't want to leave it really large in diameter. I mean, you can do it any way you want. The proportions are up to you. If you love it, then that's what it is. But look for a nice shape and nice proportions. So since this piece is kind of squatty, I'm going to go ahead and make it a little bit smaller so that it'll be a little bit taller than it is large in diameter. It'll have just a little bit better look to it. But as you can see here, I started to round this over. And then we're going to come up underneath this with the curved hollowing tool and scoop out and make this recurve flared bell, if you will. So the first thing I'm going to do is make this, generally speaking, finalize this outside shape, and then we'll take away more of the middle, and then we'll come in with the curved tool. So that'll take that out. Okay? I got my fan going. Everything's good. I got my AC on today. It's a sunny day. I'm loving life. This is great. And I have a meeting with the Philippines today at 2 for some work we've been doing on the website. Contracted out some speed things. And also, speaking of speed, I didn't mention this earlier. I know this is just for the geeks. So now we're running at almost a gigabyte internet speed out here. We're running about 960, 940. That was what the change was a couple of weeks ago. I upped the service for the internet. And so now I should never have any buffering out here again, knock on the lathe. Running at close to a gigabyte in our download, and 24, 25 up. So I can run all 4 computers out here and hopefully not have any buffering, because there's camera upgrades in the future out here which are going to draw a little bit more bandwidth. That's just a little teaser for you. All right, back to turning. I always have a plan working on something new, guys. You know that by now. So a little bit more shaping here. We're in the overhead. I'll slow down and think about this for a minute now. What do I want this to look like? And I'm not going to commit to the center of that yet in there. So we're just removing excess wood. And I'm leaning on that pretty hard. Okay. Now I also know that when I come in here with the recurve tool, one thing we need to think about, I need to make myself enough room that this tool will be able to reach in around the corner. So some of this is going to be in the way, correct? So I know that I need to take more of that away, so that's why I'm not worried about that, but I do have to think about it, because we'll be coming in and cutting up underneath this rim with this large tool first, and then we'll probably switch over to the smaller tool. So this is the old mid-size hollowing tool from Easywood Tools. It used to be it's the full size. Number 3, that was called a Pro, has a bigger handle. This is the mid-size number 2 that has the smaller cutter. This has the CI5 cutter. This has the CI3. So this is more of the workhorse. This one has a smaller cutter, a tighter radius if I want. But we don't quite have enough room to get that in there yet. So we're going to take some more of that away. And again, if I wanted to use my bowl gouge, I could be in here with the bowl gouge doing exactly the same thing. We'll jump back over to that. Just getting rid of this wood. So whatever tools you have, you'll be in good shape. Notice I am leaving this larger so that I can develop my base when the time comes. And again, right now I'm just in the rapid removal of material phase. And I just sweep that around, and if you want to see, I'm just sweeping my whole body as I come around. Okay, makes it the easiest way to do that. Come back in. That way you have a nice solid grip on what you're doing, okay? All right. So much fun, so much fun. So that split is still there. Hopefully it doesn't go to the middle. We'll end up making a real small stem on this thing if we have to. I'm not that particular. So now that I've cut a lot away here, I'm going to go ahead and kind of finish refining my shape on this. And I'm going to go back to the carbide tool just because I like to use it as a sculpting tool. The round cutters are so good for this. And I need to get myself a little place where I can see my contour. Optimally, I would have a nice black background back here. It's a little dirty right now so that I can see this profile. Because once we cut the inside out, we're not going to be able to take much off the outside. So we want to get this right the first time. And the more curve we have here, the more work you make for yourself. Not that that's a bad thing. Just something to keep in mind. Okay. So the top of this I'm not that concerned about because we're going to turn it around. Now I'm getting a little bit of a rough cut there from my carbide tool, and if I want to go ahead and make this as nice as I can, I'm going to go ahead and bring in a small little gouge here, probably. I might even go with my 1/4 inch. It's just a habit of mine. I like my little teeny tools. You can do it with any size tool, but I want to make my fine finish cuts, and you could also use a spindle. There's no reason you couldn't use a spindle gouge here. And I just want to get the cleanest cut I can. Let's see if that is that showing up. Yeah, that's in the end camera too. So I'm just coming along and making a very light cut. I'll make a couple of these so you can see. And I'm taking a little extra wood off just so you can see the procedure. And you can see now the type of cut and shaving we're getting. Okay? And I'll do that in the overhead for you one more time. So I just reduced my sanding by about 300%. Because now I have no torn grain here whatsoever, okay? And I can do the same thing for the top side, though I can get to this later, but if you might want to do it now to make sure that you got the shape that you want. Don't let your heel drag here. Another tool I use for this a lot is another little 1/4 inch with the heel ground away right here. It's got a real short, this is kind of my miniature bottom feeder, even though I'm using it on the outside. Okay. And so that gives me really nice clean grain. Now again, this top side we can get to after the fact, so we're not worried about that. And if I want to take some of that, I've got a little bit of a lip there now, or not a lip, but got kind of a hard edge. So if I just want to go ahead and relieve that a little bit. Now this with sand, super easy, but you can play with it with your tool as well. And just soften that edge up. Again, this top we'll be able to get to, but it'll be thin underneath here. So we want to do as much work here as we can without getting it to catch like that. This tool might not be super sharp right now. So let me go back to what I was using. Clean that up. Okay, that should take care of that. One more time through here. Now I'm going to roll this over some more, just for fun, because I want to make this fairly delicate. It's a small piece, we'll make it nice and delicate. Now I've got a little torn grain right there on the end for me messing with that. Let's take that away. Okay, we're all good there now. All right. It's time to go in underneath here. So I will switch you to the end camera and see if there's any questions. If you guys got any questions at all, just holler out. Okay. Now I'm going to actually start with the round cutter again, coming straight in here. Take a little bit of this material away before I switch over to the curve tool. And I'll start to go up underneath there. I know that that's going to be in my way when I go to rotate the other tool, so I'll take some more of this out. I sure hope that split doesn't go all the way to the middle where I have to do something crazy with this. We'll see. Okay, a little bit more with my straight tool. Alright, now let's see if we can't start to reach around the corner here. So to do this, with this curve tool, and I'm going to jump into the overhead for a second, we need to make sure, get these chips out of here where you can see, that we stay on the flat section. That's just barely in the camera. We want to be sure we stay on the flat section of the tool. Don says, would you use a negative, I bet you're saying negative rake. No, Don, I wouldn't. This wood is really soft and the negative rakes aren't going to work on it very well. It is less aggressive. Now, if you are having trouble with this type tool and reaching around the corners, the negative rakes will take a lot of the aggressiveness out of it and make it possibly more comfortable for you. But it's slower, okay? It will work, but they cut pretty slow on the softer woods. So I would use the standard cutter, just because I'm impatient. So I want to make sure that my tool is going to be on the rest there. Lock that down. And I'll start to reach up underneath here. Now, one thing that's important with these tools is you want to be sure that you're cutting right out here on the tool. You don't want to cut, you can't cut in here. Well, not really, we kind of sort of could. But you don't want to be cutting on the far side over here, because it'll make the tool jingle a bunch and jump around. So you always want to cut straight off the end of the hook, is where you're going to get your best cuts with the least amount of bounce. And then I'd rotate the tool around to go further inside. Okay, so it won't be long, and I'm almost there now, that this cutter starts to get to be too big. Now we get a little bit of tear out on the very edge there, and we'll clean that up. So I'm going to use my fingers, and I could use the set of calipers if you're so inclined. You can take a small set of calipers, and you can check your wall thickness in there up top if you want, compared to down here. You do want a uniform thickness, and a set of calipers will do great. So, you know, we've got just about the right thickness there for what we're doing, okay? But up top here, we're still quite thick, which can also be adjusted on the top if you don't get it with the tool on the inside. So let's switch over to our smaller radius tool. Now it doesn't have as much hook, so I'm going to have to reach a little further around, but it will let me make us get out into this corner further, okay? And I'm going to switch you to the end camera for this, and I'm going to get things in here pretty close, okay? And I may run into, I may have to take some of this away if I can't quite make my rotation there, all right? Matter of fact, I'm going to go ahead and do that anyway, because I know that's going to go away. So I'm just going to go ahead and get rid of some of this, because I know it's in my way. So I'll just do it now. Again, I don't want to overcommit, but I don't want to be fighting something that I don't need. I also want to leave as much material in the center area here as I can, because when I turn this around, I still need some strength when I work on the inside. So I want to leave some material here for strength coming up in the future cuts. All right, let's see, that's overhead. Let me get you back to the end. And we're going to reach up and around this corner. We can also clean that edge up there if we want to. Now you can't see in here, but you can see over there. So I'm watching the tool over on the other side where it's cutting. Then I rotate the tool around to cut the top. And if I rotate far enough, I can use this round cutter as a round cutter. If I want to shape and blend this all in, I can do that without having to change tools. And you can hear the pitch. This is fairly thin right in here. So you can hear the pitch of the wood while that's cutting. All right, and we've got a little ways to go out there. And if we can't get any further than we want to, then we can always change our outside profile after the fact. And I sure hope that that split, it's kind of funny, this split is still hanging with me. Hopefully it doesn't go down to the center. We'll be doing something goofy if it does. But a little more work in here. Now I could use the micros here as well, but they all have negative rate cutters on them to reach around this corner. And to Don's question about the negative rake, these will work, but I'm going to have a hard time, and I've got no cutter on my 45 right now. Okay, so I'm going to try and hold off from having to do that if I can. Now, what I do not have in my arsenal, believe it or not, is a mid-size number 3, which has the bigger hook. I just never brought one in for myself, and then I leaned on the stop button, and that'll make it stop running. Okay, let's see how that feels. That's feeling pretty good. I'm going to leave a little extra on the top up here. Go to the overhead for you. I'm going to leave a little extra on the top because when I turn this around, I may clean it up. I'm happy with that. Down through here. Okay, so let's take a breather from the mask, and we'll go ahead and turn this piece around now. I think I'm comfortable with this recurve that I have here underneath. So we'll turn it around and put it in to the chuck. Now, one thing I'm not super happy with, I have a little bit of a bevel, a little bit of an angle right here. This isn't perfectly square or flat, and I'd kind of like that to be flat, so I'm going to make a quick adjustment there before we turn this around, because I want it to sit nicely. So I'm going to come in with my detail tool. And just make sure that's flat. And the other thing I'm going to do is check my length. Make sure that I haven't made that tenon too long. It's a fuzz long right now, okay? So being just a little teeny bit too long, I'm going to take my square cutter again and just trim it off on the end. Because once I take this off, I don't want to have to come back. Okay, and then we'll take our detail tool and we'll go right up in here to the end of the live center, and that'll take that right away, and we'll back that off, and we'll cut that little nub off right there. Okay, and now we're all good. We're happy with our tenon. We can turn this around. I'm hoping upon hopes that this split doesn't go all the way down to what will be the stem. I could end up with a little teeny stem on this guy. So now we just unthread that. So we were lucky today that we didn't strip our threads out, but again, we stayed between centers for most of everything that we were doing. Okay. So we pop out our worm drive. Worm screw, if you will. So we've got a nice size 10 in here. We have just a bit of a gap right there, so almost the perfect circle, which is what we're after. We want to make sure that turns pretty true before we tighten it all the way down, and it does. So we'll snug that guy up. Okay, that's not too bad. Now this wood is pretty soft, so I'm going to let that compress for 30 seconds or so. And then I'll tighten it up again. Does anybody have any kind of questions today? We're about 11:45 here, it looks like, or something like that on the time. 11:56, depending on which monitor I look at. So I'm going to let that compress for a second. I'm going to take a quick sip of soda over here. Okay. Snug that up one more time. There we go. And that should do the trick. Okay. So the next thing I think I want to do, I'm going to clean up this end. I might bring the tailstock back up as I do some work on the center here. But I want to clean, oh, wrong button. I want to clean up this face real quick. And I may stick the tailstock back up in here just as I make some work on this section and then back over here in the back. Just for a little extra stability. You know, it's not necessary. But it doesn't hurt. And maybe I won't. This seems pretty strong. Okay. So let's go to work on this top. Let's clean up this bottom down here too. Go to the overhead for a second. I just want to reach up here and get rid of that kind of torn up grain right on the end of that. Just so it doesn't bother me. Come to the end. We're going to I'm going to kind of rough shape this before I start taking away from the stem, if you will. Now, one thing I'm going to do, you'll see here, and I've gone to the front camera, I'm going to kind of look over the very top of this and look at how my curve rolls. Okay, so that gives me an idea of where to work to here. And I think I'll leave it on the end camera for you as I come around here. Now this is not, it's not turning perfectly true to the size it was before. Or to the axis, it's a little teeny bit out of round when I turned it around. So I'm going to clean that up before I finish committing to this. Go to the overhead for you. Since I had to true it back up, I go ahead and refine that shape just a little bit. Okay, that looks a lot better. Indeed it does. All right, back to the inside. Again, I love this wood, the sycamore. I'm tired of turning it, but I love it because of the way it looks. I can also be doing this same work with a bowl gouge, if I so desire. I think I'll grab like a 1/2 inch. And we can remove this material with the bowl gouge just as well. When would I use a square radius corner cutter to clean up the ridges? Square radius, yes, Don, the square radius you could use out here. Which camera am I on? I'm on the end. Out here we could use a square radius to clean this up. Now that the shape is done, because the round cutter with the carbide tools leaves a little bit of a wavy action. So that's what we could do. I can do it right now, as a matter of fact. But I'm gonna wait until I take some more material out of the center here, Don, because this may move a little bit. And if I clean it up completely now, and then come back, and then take the material out, it might move a little bit. So let's take some of this out with the bowl gouge, just to show the bowl gouge. And again, you'll notice as I start to cut, I keep looking over the top, because I'm keeping track of this thickness, and I still got a fair bit and plenty. But one of the ways I gauge it, I just kind of look over the top. I don't stay there, but I make sure I have a point of reference as to where I'm going by looking over the top. Might lower that down just a fuzz more. So again, I just like to show the different tools. Either one will work, whatever you've got. That one may not be super sharp. But like if I wanted to use my small one, my little guy that I love, it works nicely here too. And I am going to want to develop this curve before I take the material away from the back side. So I do want to develop the curve inside here before I take away this strength. Because if I made this as thin as it needs to be, or is going to end up being now, I wouldn't have the strength to be cutting on the inside. I would run the risk of snapping whatever stem I might have here. So I do want to leave that as I work this curve together. And I'll go to about here with it, if you will. Use that finger as an indicator, just to define all the top here. Now this one is a little tricky with that crack in it, because I have to decide, how big is the space going to be. So it's a little bit trickier than usual. Okay, I've got enough material. I'm going to just smooth all this up now. It's a little more refinement on the shape. So as it gets closer and closer, you want to check it more. I typically use my fingers just to feel. And And again, if you're working with the carbide tools, the round cutters make this super easy to make these nice long sweeping curves all the way around. So I'm sitting at pretty much center right now as it is. And then for Don, to Don's question about using the radius cutter, I'm going to get the shape here, my final refined shape essentially. And then we'll bring the radius square cutter in. Okay, so that's reasonable. That's respectable thickness in there. So a radiused, I need to find a radiused non-negative rake, though I could use a negative rake. I've got a lot of things switched over to negative rakes right now, like pretty much everything. Let me see if I happen to have a non-negative rake radius. I don't. I've been doing too much resin. So this is a negative rake radius cutter here, and we'll go to the overhead. It'll just be a little less aggressive is all. But this will allow us to clean up any kind of tool marks from the round cutter. As you know, using this as the scraper. So think of this as the sander. This is about your 180, maybe 220 grit sander, if you will. Hey, Loran, good to see you. I finally came back to work. So what you don't want to let those corners touch, because you'll make a groove and defeat the whole purpose. And it is helpful to practice switching hands. Now here I don't know if you can hear the ticking. This moved quite a bit back here. And it's fairly thin. But we'll still clean it up nonetheless. Okay. So we've got a nice little roll here. Rolls right around. Beautiful grain to the inside. And again, this wood is super soft these days. So if you didn't get something that you wanted the way it wanted, it will sand up nicely and quickly. Now you can do this inside if you're careful. Since this is all curved still to a point, we can come around and we can come in here until it starts to curve back around. So, but you want to be careful there, okay? Normally I wouldn't tell you to go inside a piece with this cutter. Because there you see the corner touch. Okay. So I've got a little line right here in the profile that I think I want to take out, and I'm trying to find the light's giving me a shadow right there, which makes it kind of hard to see. Okay. Now, where are we at? We have our rim designed up here. I'm going to take pop this off for a second. We've got our complete rim worked out from underneath all the way around down to the inside. So we're happy with all of this. Now here's the question where we start to run into what do we do next? So we've defined our wall thickness to right here, and now we have our stem to make. And we have this split in this guy, all right? So what do we do? How do we go about this? I said this was going to be a vase. So the question is, do I have enough material once I get rid of this split to have a vase that you could actually put something down inside? The question is, or the answer is, I don't know. So I need to turn some more of this away, basically as an exploratory, to see what I'm dealing with. Optimally, if you didn't have the split, well, it wouldn't be an issue. But hey, I'm turning to what I got, which many of us, if you've got a piece of wood and you've got whatever invested in it, whether it's just time or, unfortunately, if you've got invested money and it's got a split, well, that's sorry for that. But when you're working with wood that you got nothing in other than time, and it's a pretty piece of wood, so I don't really want to waste it. So I gotta see what's going to happen with this split. So I need to turn some more. I'm going to turn some of this stem area away here, kind of in an investigation type thing. And while I'm doing that, I just want to put some finish on the top of this, just so we can see what that looks like. Now it hasn't been sanded or anything else. And I know that, but I think I'm going to put a little tung oil on here. I'm curious to see what this grain looks like. So guys, humor me. Again, it hasn't been sanded. It might have some tool marks. You get that. But I want to see what the top of this looks like, because I think it's going to be really pretty. I'm just curious. And we're going to turn more in here, and I get all that. But I'm just, curiosity is killing me to see what this looks like. And I can see some lines where the contour is not perfect, that'll sand up over time. But let's just see what this looks like. This is Steve Cook's tung oil from Chromacraft. A really nice tung oil. I'm just going to wipe this in. And see how that grain pops. The end grain sucks it up like a sponge. Because there's no sealer or anything else on this. But that's a beautiful piece of wood. Again, it hasn't been sanded, so it's tearing a little bit of the paper towel away. But I love the way this looks. Neat piece of sycamore. Okay? I just had to do that for my own satisfaction, my own curiosity. Sometimes you just got to take a look. A lot of times I would use lacquer. I could have just put denatured alcohol on it, but I had that right there, and I thought I'd use it. I felt like it, and so that's what I did. And that's going to be all fuzzy from the paper towels. But oh well. Okay. Enough fooling around, right? Let's put some of these tools away. So Don, I hope that answered your question regarding using the radius cutter. Just use it on that outside after you're done with all your round cutter cuts. Come in there and just clean that guy up. Just roll around there. Don't let the corners touch, and you'll be all good. All right. What are we going to do in here? Let's go exploring. So I'll pop to the overhead, take a quick sip to stay hydrated. I'm going to stay with my round style carbide cutter. Looks like I'm pretty well centered up. Let's see what we're going to have to do with this. I'm going to come up just a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and start taking some of this down. We'll get it all smooth here. And I'll check this wall thickness, make sure I'm not overcutting anything. Because I don't know if you can see it, right there I've got a little bit of tear out from before. And it's right on the edge of where I made the piece thin. So I can take some of that out, but I do have to be careful. So let's clean that up. And that went away pretty easily. Well, it's getting smaller. We're making a little headway. If you're like me and you're not the world's greatest spindle turner because you just haven't done it that much, at least this section, if you wanted to practice with your spindle gouge, grab your spindle gouge while you're just mowing this wood out of here. I think it just fell on the floor. Most of them I have put away. I'm looking to see if I have another bigger one here. I may not. But I've got my little spindle detail gouge. And if I just wanted to practice a finish cut, again, just like I was talking about before, if you want to practice finish cuts and you've got this waste wood that you've got going on here, this is as good a time as any. If it's sharp. I believe I've been turning resin with that last, so that tool isn't sharp, but you get the idea. You could use your bowl gouge. Both of those I was doing resin work with. I'll grab the old little guy. If you just wanted to practice your finish cuts, great time and place to do it. For that matter, just for yucks, if we wanted to practice with the Sorby Spindle Master, another one that's fun to play with. I'm just having lots of fun here today. The Spindle Master is kind of like a spindle gouge, a spindle skew, I mean. Spindle gouge skew combination. Gives you super clean cut. Just don't want to use the tip of this. Always come off on the corner. The bevel below, the polished bevel, actually burnishes the wood. It gives you a super finish. So never dismiss that extra wood that you're getting rid of, that waste wood, for some extra tool work. Okay, let's see, what other tools can we play with in here on this? So I wish I had my my other spindle gouges sharpened up, or in a handle, but they're in the toolbox and they're not sharp. You could even just use your bigger tools if you've only got certain tools. So I'm just kind of having fun playing with different tools here. It's the 5/8 bowl gouge. So don't think that you can't use a bigger tool if that's what you've got. As long as it fits. you're in good shape. Okay? We get hung up on having to have like 37 tools, and it's not really the case. Okay? You can do a lot with just a couple of tools. So we still have our split right in there. Now I can't get much with this going the other way, but I can try a little bit just for fun. It never hurts to try different things, new things. Try new angles and approaches with a different tool. We still have that split. So this is going to end up, I got a feeling where this is going to end up, which I'm not super crazy about, but then again, it might be just perfect by the time it's all said and done as well. I'm just not convinced that that's its center. It's pretty close, just a fuzz low. So I'm checking up here where my wall is. Getting a vibration. And it may be because I've taken a bunch of this material out, which I knew was a possibility. We may be bringing the tailstock up. To take some of that out. But let's see about getting rid of that split. That's been our number one issue. Will it go away, and how small do we have to make it? Okay, it's getting close to being gone. Alright, I'm going to bring the tailstock up here real quick, just to kind of settle this guy down a little bit. Because I would normally go ahead and take the middle out of this now, but I just don't know how small this is going to end up down here. So that's why I'm kind of holding up on that. Now look, this is a rubber chucky, and this one looks like it will just about fit down in there. So I'm just going to screw that on. This is urethane from rubber chuckies. These things are awesome. Nice, soft. It won't mar your finish in anything. Could I fill the epoxy? Could you epoxy fill the crack to keep the wall thicker? Absolutely, you could. Indeed, if that's something you wanted to do. Again, here I wouldn't want to take the time because we wouldn't finish getting the shape. And I actually don't mind this being a little bit smaller, so I think this is going to be real close to where I want it. But certainly you could. The only question there is you don't know if you're going to get it filled far enough if you were to to open it up on the back side. So if it didn't penetrate far enough with your epoxy, and you go and take the inside out and you cut down past where the epoxy is, if you hollow it out on the inside and it didn't get enough bond, then you break the whole piece. So there's a little risk involved there. You know, it's always a little risk involved in a lot of things, but you could do it. But be aware of that if you don't get the epoxy far enough packed into that groove, because you don't know what it's doing on the other side, what you can't see, maybe it flares back out. Probably not. But you could have the chance of it breaking because you think it's all solid now, and it not necessarily so. Okay. All right. Let's see if that took away this vibration. Back to the overhead here. And see if this helps at all. And it does. Took away that vibration. All right, So the one thing about putting the rubber cone in is now we can't check our wall thickness. So that's something you have to keep in mind. But you can listen. You can always take it off and check. And realistically, what I'm probably going to do here, so our split is almost gone. I'm going to part this off. I'm going to cut this. The easiest way to get rid of the tenon on this is to part this off. So what I'm going to do is make a flat spot. Give myself enough material to part. And I'm going to make myself a little teeny wall here. Excuse me. I don't know if you can see this in the end or not, but I'm going to build up a little barrier between the top of my jaws. Okay? So it's not zoomed in a lot, but if you look right here, I have made a little wall of wood. Okay? So that's going to keep my parting tool from touching my jaws, because if I touch the jaws, if I cut in and I get in the gap right here, if a tool goes into that gap, you end up bending the tool. I've got one. I don't know if it's handy that I can show you what happens when you do that. Yes. So if the tool goes into the jaws, it comes out looking like that. That used to be straight, and now it's not. All right, so you want to make sure that I put myself a little bit of a buffer right there, and you're good. This guy, I don't know why I keep it, but I do. And so what I want to do is I'm going to take my parting tool, and I'm going to go ahead and define where I'm going to part the base off. Then I'll know exactly where my bottom is, and then I can work on my shape that way. Why has my video ended? Why did you quit? I see that it says it quit on Facebook. Did I go away? Or am I still here? Let's go take a look. Facebook, why did you say I went away? I could be wrong. What's the deal? Facebook, what's going on? I may be all fine and not know it. At least on my computer it says that Facebook feed has quit. So I will ask you guys, I can see you on Facebook. Okay, so there's just something weird on my Facebook thing here, my monitor that says I went away. I was like, what? What do you mean I'm gone? I don't get it. But who knows? So now I'm watching a replay. Well, as long as it's still there, I'm going to go back out and keep on keeping on, because it probably picked back up. I don't know. But Awesome says it's still there, so... Well, now it's popping back up again. Who knows? I'm not sure. I think we're good. I hope we're good. Because I'm too close to the end to stop now. So that makes no sense why it's gone away, gang. In some places. I know it's still over on YouTube. I don't know what's going on. Hey, it's Facebook, I guess. Anyway, where was I at? When I was parting tool. So Carter & Son 16th inch parting tool, my favorite parting tool from these guys. My favorite parting tool of all parting tools, really. And I just want to establish where it's going to be. Where the bottom is going to be. I'm not going to part it off right now. I just want to make that cut. So you can see I have my little wall, my little safety wall right here, and I've got my bottom set up. Okay, now we can go back to working on this shape. And before I go too far, I'm going to stop and take out some more of the inside. So I've pretty well decided that that's just about where I want to be. Let's see if this still vibrates or not. All right. I keep rethinking this. I'm going to go ahead and finish my outside profile, and then we'll take the inside of this out. That'll still be enough there for the stem of something that if you were to use it as a vase. Again, it's kind of short and squat. Go to the overhead camera for you, and I'm just refining this shape up now. It looks like I'm back on there. I don't know, craziest things. I'm looking up at my monitor. And so now I'm going to look for anything else that I might want to do turning wise. I still have a little teeny split right there, believe it or not. And I don't really want to go any further with that. Not really. But I'm going to. I do love these round carbide cutters because I can just make this long sweeping arc through here. And now I'm looking over here, if you can see my hand, my finger pointing, over there I have a black cabinet, and I can look at that profile and see exactly where I want to be. Okay, now one thing that's tough is with the carbide cutter, it's not, I mean, it was resharpened. I get a little bit of tear out, which would sand out. I could do this with the spindle gouge. You'd be a hard time getting to this section in here because you just can't get to it with a gouge to cut downhill, to cut down the grain. So that's just where you're going to end up doing a little bit of sanding work to clean that up. Okay. Split is still there. I'm going to take a little bit more of this out. I got a feeling it's not going to go away on me. One big arc. One nice big arc right there. Okay. Beautiful wood. And that just about, but I can still see just a fuzz of that split in there. Okay. So we'll go back to the inside. We'll take the rest of the inside of this guy out. Maybe I'm in Facebook jail for something, because I see it stopped again. And I don't know why. Okay, let's take some middle out of this guy. What's the time like anyway? 12:37. So we're about to wrap up before too terribly long in the first place. And that's where that split was. So I guess that pretty much ends that project. That's how that goes when you have that split there. All that work. Now, could I glue it back together? Yes, I could glue it back together. So looking at the wood, wasn't that fun? Looking at the wood, this is one of the risks of working with less than perfect wood. I can see that split is right there, virtually all the way through this guy. Virtually all the way through. So we didn't get to part that off like we wanted to. Oh well, that's right where the split was. Yes, I could glue it back together, and maybe I will, because that will glue back together, and you won't see it per se. That's right where the split is. It goes in through there. That's unfortunate. That's sad that did that. It's also unfortunate that I have no idea if I'm still on the Facebook feed or not. Don says, good learning lesson for us. Absolutely, Don. So that's when you go into a piece like this with that split in there, you have to know that that possibility exists. And so I talked about that from the beginning. Make for sombrero for a garden gnome. Great idea, George. That possibility always exists. And like I talk about out here all the time, I don't mind having things like that happen to me out here because it's reality. It's what really goes on. And so I think it's a good example. As you say, it's a good learning lesson for everybody. And if it's the last piece or the first piece of whatever I've ever broke, well, you know, all good. This will glue back together just fine. I'll send it up to my dad. He likes to glue all the broken pieces that I used to have up there at the other shop back together and finish them out. So, Dad, I'll send this up to you. Now, also, there's another thing a little in the lesson here. So let's say we glue this back together and it doesn't have the best look to it. They got a glue line or something like that. This would be a great candidate to take out the Rustina, the patina style paint, and do a patina metallic finish on it, which would hide all that. So you could have a pretty cool piece in that regard. I'm almost tempted. I want to just like stick this in a set of little jaws, but it doesn't have enough reach on it just to finish turning out that inside right there. It's a pretty piece of wood, and it was so close. Got an hour and a half in this fun little project. And again, yes, it will glue back together, you know, and it'll glue back together nicely. You know, you always hate for that to happen, but it does. So, I'm just reading my mom or dad's comment there about being where I'm at on Facebook. So it's a pretty piece of wood. The thing is, usually I wouldn't glue these back together. I just throw it away and keep on moving. But this is, I like the grain in this guy. I really do. I like the way this looks. And so I really do think this would be a neat little piece just for, you know, a doily somewhere around the house. So I probably will glue this back together. Because if I was to take my usual little trick here, just throw a little lacquer on it. Just to see what this looks like. I really like the grain on this. So that's worth salvaging. It's a pretty piece of wood. So I think I would redo that one. Yeah, it could be a lot of things. Who knows what else we could do with it? It's not the end of the world. And again, it was good practice, especially if you're practicing your finish cuts. Cool beans. Well, I guess I get to go to lunch early. That means I have a little bit more time for talking to the Philippines. What else is coming up? So here's the deal. I'm going to do a bunch of work in the studio out here this week, and you'll see posts next week. I'm going to start the live filming of the products for the website, for the new Spiracraft website. Had talked about that before I went on vacation and thought I might maybe squeak a few in before I went, but I didn't get to that. I ended up getting ready for vacation, which was well worth it. So next week, and I haven't decided how many days a week or what hours yet, but you'll know. I'll be filming live the tool product descriptions, tools and all the other products, and probably a couple days during the week, like maybe 3 days, and maybe 2 hours in the morning, 2 hours in the afternoon, something like that. So it won't be Monday Methods per se. It's going to be live filming of the product reviews. But I would encourage you and love for you to come by and visit. And if you have questions, the way it's going to work, you can still ask me questions as you normally do here in the chat, and I'd be happy to answer them because I'm going to edit and do some other work with them anyway. But it would be great. It'd be great to have you, and it gives me a live audience to work with. And Don says, "When is my next showcase?" Don, the next showcase is something that I'm also planning. I'm thinking sometime late May. I do have to go out west for a little while. So I got to work it into the schedule, but I do plan another showcase, and it's going to be promoted by another entity as well, and I need to confirm that before I say anything public about it. So it's going to be on a larger scale, and the reason I haven't jumped on another showcase just yet is I want to get some of the product videos into the website so people can go see the product videos. So I'd like to kind of give myself a month's worth of recording time, give or take, and then do a product showcase probably late May or early June, depending on when I end up running to Colorado for a couple of weeks. Something like that. The showcases are real popular. I have a great time. So like I said, I need to get the product videos on the website, and so that there's something for folks to look at, because right now I just have all the placeholder video thumbnails in there. So that's what's coming up in the Spiracraft world. I've got some other goodies that I haven't talked about at all that hopefully we'll be finishing up real soon, and you guys will find out about them. You know me, I can't sit on a secret very long. So I got some other goodies coming. Spiracraft's got some other stuff coming up that's good. That's pretty fun, and I think you guys will enjoy it. So on that note, if anybody's got any questions, I'll fire them into the chat box there, the chat column. What happened on Facebook today, I don't have a clue. Some people are seeing it. Some say it's gone. Mine's going again. It's coming and going. Who knows what Facebook does? Looks like it's running fine on YouTube. You guys over on YouTube don't seem to be having any problem. So it might be in the Facebook world. That's why I stream to multiple places. It's also, you may find it's, I don't know if it's dead on all the Facebook pages, because it's on the Monday Methods Wood and Resin Turning Community page, and it's also on the Studios of Bradley RM page. So you may catch the ends of this there. Art, you're quite welcome. I enjoyed the presentation. I had a lot of fun, even after I broke the piece right there at the very end. That's usually how it goes. You don't break them when they're a big chunk of wood. You usually break them after 90% of the work has taken place. Hey, it's part of it. It comes with it. Smile and move along. I appreciate everybody being here today. I'm going to go ahead and shut down, and we will see you next Monday and next week for product demos. And Thursday night, come to the Monday Methods Wood and Resin Turning Community meeting. I'm out here shooting the breeze with anybody who wants to come by and talk about stuff. I hope somebody goes and and doesn't break it. Make yourself a flared rolled vase. Hey, maybe we should put it back together like that. What do you think? We put it together crooked? People go, how in the world did you do that, right? How's that for off-center turning? All right, gang. I'm going to take off out of here, shut this thing down. Thank you very much. Have a great week, and I'll see you again soon.